A Rover 600 is a temptingly cheap retro project car these days, so our colleagues at Classics World picked up a late top spec 623 GSI to find out what they're like to own and to live with.
Here we are, the big reveal. Here is our lovely Rover 600. And not just any 600, this is the top of the range 623 GSI. So you've got the alloy wheels, you've got the leather interior, you've got the 156 brake horsepower Honda double overhead camshaft engine. The paintwork's all right, but there's a few little imperfections. We've got this little ding here. We've got a bit of crud here in the lower arch here. Tried to feel underneath the seals. It doesn't look that bad, but time will tell whether we bought two cars instead of one. Bit of bubble in there, bit more crud again down here. The tyres are good all round. I can't vouch for the brand. I think it's got this iffy brand on the back. But take a look at the interior. Look at how straight that leather interior is. Electric adjustment for the seats, air conditioning, electric windows, electric mirrors. It all works, I think. The wing and the bonnet don't look exactly the right shade, but I don't know whether that was like a wing's being repaired at some point. And this being a V-plate, of course, this is pretty much one of the last examples of a 600, because of course they would have had Rover 75s on a V-reg. I really like it. So here we are, we're inside this fantastic Rover 623. So first assessments then, it's running well, touch wood. The engine's purring away quite nicely, the temperature gauge is slap bang in the middle. Things that need doing to it are all sort of tidying up, cosmetic jobs. So time will tell whether we bought a good example or not. But I think I'm going to look forward to finding out just how good the Rover 600 is. I think they're great, but we will see over the next few months.
With the cheap sports cars challenge ending abruptly when one of the cars slightly blew up, the Rover was given to me as part of the 90s rep cars challenge. And it's fair to say that initial impressions were mixed.
Project car day?
It is, very excited. What have you got, something sporty for us? Because my sports car's been broken for a while.
Almost. It's over there.
Oh, yes!
So Joe, we know you're a fan of a Rover.
I certainly am.
So, you know, here is our Rover 600, the 623 GSI no less, the one that you and I collected all that time ago.
I remember that. That was a good day, but even all these months later, it still looks slightly broken on this side. How long did you have this? Is that like your version of a trafficator? So it's like out on the wing, so it
like
comes out so people can see it coming?
Yeah.
That looks excellent. Why is that window up? Why are the other three down?
Well, look, we know we bought a very honest example of a 22-year-old Rover.
No, let's be clear. You bought a very honest example.
I bought an honest example of a 22-year-old
Is there something
Rover.
You're not telling me?
It needs a bit of TLC, Joe. That's all it needs.
For a start, there is a little storage cubby just down here below the headlight height control, and when I shut the driver's door this morning, it fell off. In traditional British car fashion, we do have a sagging headliner, although the actual headliner in the Rover is fine. It's just the stuff that goes over the sunroof cover. It looks like, if I look in the mirror, the central brake light has dropped. The indicator is no longer hanging off. The car is not looking quite so dilapidated. Now, sadly, I wasn't able to fix the repeater that was on there. The little clips that hold the repeater into the wing were completely broken. Long and the short of it, it was far easier to buy a good used replacement off a lovely chap on a Rover 600 Facebook page, swap the bulb holder over, and Bob's your uncle, it now looks great. The near side rear light had taken a whack at some point, had a big crack in it, and it was full of water. Thankfully, the same lovely bloke off the same Rover 600 Facebook page sold me a mint condition rear light, which was only 3 nuts and a swap of a bulb holder away from being fitted. The driver's power mirror does technically power fold, but the wrong way, and I think I know why. Someone who doesn't know that these are power folding mirrors has wrenched it around by hand, and in doing so, broken the stop top inside that stops it from going all the way around and doing that. It's happened on the passenger side as well, and it means that when you're accelerating, braking or driving into the wind, the mirrors don't even stay straight. They flap around and makes them really difficult to use. The other issue is with the window on the driver's door. You can technically put it down, but if you put it back up again, you need someone on the outside of the door as well pushing against it to keep it on its track and stop it from popping out. We've actually got to take the door card off, and that looks to be, at least, fairly simple. So here is our lovely Rover 600 door card, and there are a couple of things to do to get it off. There's a screw inside the door handle that needs undoing. Then remove the handle, swivel this brown clip to unlatch the door release cable and slide it upwards out of the handle. There's a screw here in the armrest and another one under here. Then we need to take this screw off the back, pop that plastic clip off the front, and then we need to get a trim tool behind this door card to actually lever it away from the door frame. There. The power mirror control, again just this big grey plug, undo it, and then the door card simply lifts away. Right, let's start with our mirror. Now first things first, we need to get this little plastic panel off. Away she comes, lovely. And you reveal the 3 bolts, Phillips head, that hold the mirror in place. It's well worth unplugging it, because otherwise the bolts will come out and all the weight will just be hanging on the wiring. So just unplug you and you, there we go. Then we can undo these bolts completely. Just be careful of snagging the loom on the door. And that is one utterly knackered Rover 600 mirror.
The observant amongst you might notice that the new mirror isn't the same Charleston green as the car. The original plan was to aerosol the new mirrors the right colour, but local paint shops had a minimum 2-week lead time on the paint, and buying it online meant paying 20 quid for 400 millilitres, which smacks of a rip-off. So plan B is to gently lever the mirror casings off with a screwdriver, slotting it into the gaps and prising the casings off. The original backs simply clip into place and will do the job for now. The new mirrors then slot onto the doors, feeding the wiring through first before bolting the mirror into place. The new mirrors retain the power adjustment, but they fold manually. It turns out that working power folding 600 mirrors are hen's teeth these days, and not only are these mirrors well sprung and rigid, but ditching the power folding means there's one less thing to go wrong.
So this that you can see here is the bolt for the guide that holds the actual glass into the regulator. And what we need to do is undo that bolt or loosen it so that we can then tease the glass out of the guide. There's also this bolt to hold on the guide, which is at the front of the door, but that one is going to be a bit of a spanner job, I think. Right, I'm holding this very carefully because I've undone one of the bolts completely. The front one is now only finger tight, and when that comes out, the glass can drop. Okay, so now those 2 bolts are out of the guide, the glass can actually be teased out like that. There we go. Next, take the speaker out. 4 Phillips head screws, nothing more complicated than that. Just don't lose the screws.
Next, the window rubbers are peeled off the tracks and moved out of the door frame. Then the bolts holding the regulator in are all undone, and the regulator can be folded up and teased out of a hole in the door. Oh, and don't forget to unplug the wiring to the motor. So here is the old window reg, and you can see it was very rusty and very greasy, and it was probably not long for this world in any sense of the word. Thankfully our new one, or second-hand one but working one, is in much better nick. This was the start of things going wrong. Initially the old and new regulators are the same, but look closer and you'll notice that the mounting bolt holes are on opposite sides. That's right, I'd been sent a passenger side regulator by mistake. With light fading and rain in the forecast, it's action stations to get a window back in the Rover. I wire brush back all the rust on the original regulator, clean off the dirt and grease before spraying white grease liberally into all the joints and the sliders. I swap the motors back over, bolt the old reg into the door and reattach the glass. Is it possible that a good clean and re-grease had done the job?
It only works.
The next day, the regulator bolts are torqued up and the door card reattached. And with that, we're done. These simple, cheap fixes prove how easily cars of this era often can be tidied up. In some cases, you don't even need new parts, just to freshen up and maintain your existing ones.
So what did I think of the Rover after all that?
Well, dressed as a sales rep on a lap of the M25, naturally, I reflected on my time with the 600 and whether I'd own one.
When Phil said that he was buying a Rover 600 to add to our fleet, I'll admit, I was interested. I was keen to get stuck in. I could sense there was a good car under all these tatty edges. It just needed some simple, and I hoped relatively cheap improvements. And as it turns out, I was right. A new taillight and a new side repeater were just 20 quid for the both of them. A pair of new mirrors was 25 quid. And then there are the fixes on this car that haven't cost anything. The wiper arms were a bit scabby, so I spent an afternoon, took them off, sanded them back, fresh coat of black paint, and again, nicely smartened this car up. And this 600 is a great lesson in that. The 600 might not be the most interesting car that Rover ever made, and to be honest, for my money, I do still prefer the 200 R8. But right now, these cars are a proper forgotten gem. You can get into a tatty one for less than 500 quid, and as I've proved, they're a fun, cheap and easy way into a modern classic project car. They're fantastically comfortable, they're surprisingly economical as it turns out, and they're really spacious and practical. They might be the unloved Rover right now, but get them while they're cheap, people. One day, these will be a classic.